much. We'll now move on to our next topic, and that is infrastructure. Infrastructure, right now, federal money is expected from the American Rescue Plan Act, and in fact, half of it is already here. Possibly another infusion of funds could come if Congress hammers out an infrastructure deal. Infrastructure spending will be a key issue for Cleveland's next mayor. Clevelander Diana Hildebrand spends a lot of time biking around Cleveland. She wants smooth and safe roads and sidewalks for everyone, motorists, bicyclists, and pedestrians to share. She told us the next mayor needs to address what she sees as a big east side-west side disparity in infrastructure investment.
What we need from our next mayor is to look at the differences between the east and the west side of Cleveland and how we can make them connected and very similar in a lot of ways and safer. Our infrastructure on the east side is definitely lacking when it comes to how the roadways are constructed, safety on our roadways, our sidewalks. How can you connect your streets to the sidewalk in a safe way? Most of our sidewalks on the east side is curbs. There's no ramp to get on. And what I really want to see is to connect us, to make us cohesive, to make us a real community. With all the disconnections between our roadways and infrastructure, it lacks community. And I believe that if we connect those, we'll bring more people into different types of neighborhoods where they can explore and see the beauty of what Cleveland can really offer.
And our first question goes to Elizabeth.
Well, Nick, you mentioned the American Rescue Plan, so let's start there. This has the chance to have a lasting positive impact on a lot of Clevelanders' lives. So how do you plan to use the American Rescue Plan funds and potentially the infrastructure resources?
Mr. Bibb, we'll start with you.
Well, when I got word of the fact that we were going to have over $500 million through the American Rescue Plan, I called for establishing an Office of Economic Recovery that will work with the Chamber, Jumpstart, Team NEO, and our other CDCs to make sure we have a cohesive strategy around how we spend these dollars. Secondly, we should be leveraging this capital long term to invest in our neighborhoods, to identify shovel-ready projects all across our community, and then finally, make sure we can use these dollars to eradicate the digital divide and once and for all, fund a lead paint endowment to ensure we have no more lead paint across this city. I would also say this, all across this country, mayors have worked with their council leadership to have a plan. We are still waiting on real action right now in this city. And we need a mayor who can work with the next council president to ensure we get real action on this issue immediately come day one.
Mr. Kelley.
Thank you very much. It's going to be tough to answer in 60 seconds, but here's my best shot. We have food insecurity. We have housing insecurity. We need to deal with housing, both demolition, blight removal, lead. We need to deal with our broadband access. We need to deal with the food bank, the food insecurity, making sure that we are contributing to the food bank, Hunger Network, those people that have really expressed the pain. We can put it in our parks, public works. This is transformational, generational, this is once in a lifetime. And that's why thus far we have taken steps. We have already funded the food bank's capital. We put money towards broadband already. We didn't have to, we know that the need is there. We know that there's a plan being worked on. And again, we're not waiting for anything. We're working on a plan. We had a committee hearing today. We've been working on this since March 11th in terms of putting together the categories, the buckets, and how are we best going to distribute this. Broadband was crisis now. Like we said, when broadband happened, my daughter and CMSD sent home 38,000 scholars, knowing that 18,000 of them
Kelley.
did not have broadband access.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bibb, was there a response you wanted to offer? No? All right, we'll move on to the next question. The newly renamed Cleveland Guardians, the City of Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, and the State of Ohio are proposing a $435 million 15-year lease extension deal. It would cost the public sector $285 million over the life of that deal before factoring in additional costs tied to a 10-year renewal after that. Do you believe that this is a good deal for the city, Mr. Kelley?
Thank you. We cannot lose the Guardians as a part of the Cleveland fabric. We cannot risk that, but we need to make sure that we come up with a plan that is fair to the public, that is fair to the team, and the the plan that is in front of us has started the very beginning of the council deliberation project. So I still have a lot of questions about it, but I am familiar with the parameters. I've read the term sheet. But again, we just have to make everything as a but-for question. By spending this, by allowing the admission tax to be used in such a way, do we get the economic benefit from this stadium, this arena? Now, throughout the years, this arrangement has been very good to the city, but we need to make sure as we move forward that in keeping the team, we have a trust, a bond with the public, that they understand that we are going to spend what is needed to keep this team and to keep this an economically robust part of Cleveland's economy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bibb. Is this a good deal for the city?
Well, listen, that's to be debated. I would say a couple things. Number one, the fact that we have 3 major league sports teams in the city of Cleveland is a major economic and civic asset. Don't get me wrong on this. However, there is deep frustration and anger and pain in the fact that the public and even city council is the last to know when these deals get done. And that's why folks are still upset about the fact that they didn't have a vote on the Quicken Loans deal. And for us to truly put people and neighborhoods first, we got to make sure we have strong public input and public engagement, not when the deal is done, but when the deals are created in the first place. I would also say this. I would want to see stronger community benefits agreements and metrics and goals around all of these plans to make sure that our neighborhoods are getting their fair share of resources long term.
Mr. Kelley, was there a response you wanted to offer?
Yes. This deal was not negotiated without council. It is in front of council. We are discussing it now. Nothing happens without council being involved. And I don't know, I'm not sure what my opponent's been involved in one of these deals before to understand how they go. But generally speaking, you know, the term sheet is given to Cleveland City Council, and then we deliberate on it. That's when we bring public. That's when we bring the public in. That's when all this happens. He mentioned the Q deal. I'm not sure if he knows this, but the petition committee withdrew the petitions. I didn't. I don't have the authority to do that. The petition committee did it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bibb. Any response?
Again, the council president is distorting the truth. He worked with Republicans downstate to deny the will of the people on this issue, and he does not believe in democracy. Democracy works. And for far too long, we've had a city where we barely just got public comment for the first time in 100 years. Without resident voice and input, we're going to continue to see more frustration on these issues. We need a mayor who believes in the will of the people and taking real public input from day in and day out all the time.
Mr. Kelley.
Thank you. This is a perfect example of not having a command of the basic facts, and it shows a naivete towards how government works. I would challenge anybody who's looking at this, go back and look at what happened. The petition committee in the Q deal withdrew the petitions. It is not something that I could do. I didn't go to Columbus to do that. That is something that the petition committee did. This is, you've got to have a better knowledge of facts if you want to run for the mayor of the city of Cleveland. And if you want to bring this up, if you're going to attack somebody with something, at least make sure your facts are kind of right. And this is something that is just absolutely wrong. Please check the facts. The petition committee withdrew the petitions.
Mr. Kelley, Mr. Bibb, any response?
The council president continues to deny the will of the people. He does not believe in resident voice. I know the facts, and I have the experience to lead on day one.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so a little bit more time, sure.
Sure, I mean, that I don't believe in democracy is just you're running out of charges against me. This is something where, again, people have a right to petition their government. They have a right, just like this issue 24 is going to the ballot. I can't stop that. The facts are the facts.
So why did you stop a vote on the minimum wage?
The facts are the facts. The petition committee on the minimum wage withdrew the petitions. I don't have the authority to do that, and you should know that. If you're running for the mayor of the city of Cleveland, you should know how government works, at least a little bit.
Mr. Bibb will give you a chance to respond if you want, then we'll move on.
Senator Sherrod Brown believes I know how government works. Reverend Otis Moss believes I know how government works. And the plain dealer in Crain's Cleveland also believe I know how government works. The voters will decide come November 2nd.
Thank you very much, both gentlemen. We'll now move on to our next question from Elizabeth McIntyre.
Cleveland Hopkins International and Burke Lakefront airports are both city owned and operated and facing their own challenges. Burke is losing more than $1 million annually, and Hopkins, earlier this year, city officials announced a $2 billion plan to remake the aging infrastructure at the airport. What do you see for the future of Hopkins and Burke?
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. This question will go first to Mr. Bibb.
You know, I think it's past time we have an honest conversation about the future of Burke. However, in the short term, I would prioritize better connecting downtown to our lakefront. Excited about the proposed plan that we're seeing from the Browns in order to do that as well. And then when it comes to Hopkins, as we think about this $2 billion master plan, we need to make sure it's tied to a focused strategy on how we're going to grow and attract and retain businesses. You have great work going on right now with the Arizona Alliance. The city, in many cases, has been absent in those conversations. And we can't afford to not have a mayor who's involved in these discussions, because until we have a competitive airport, we won't have a competitive economy long term. But I'm willing to have an honest conversation about Burke. I know the issues: high construction costs, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has a dredging facility there, and a potential fine from the FAA. These are all things we should discuss, because the future of our lakefront is at risk here.
Thank you. Mr. Kelley.
Thank you. Hopkins is the front door to Cleveland, Ohio for many of our visitors, and it's critical to business travel if we want to keep business and industry in Cleveland. Conversation I had a few years ago with a company that was speculated may move. They're like, of course we're going to stay in Cleveland as long as it makes sense, as long as there's dailies to the places where we have businesses. We need to make sure that we are creating that atmosphere where our legacy carriers want to be a part of Cleveland. We need to make sure they're expanding routes. And part of that is Burke Lakefront Airport. We need to make sure that we are being smart about Burke Lakefront Airport. It's not just the real estate. It's the idea that if Burke were to close and that traffic were to come to Hopkins, that would slow the takeoff, the landing, the whole schedule of operations that we have at Hopkins. So it's not a simple issue. Any candidate that just says, I'm going to close Burke, I would just recommend crossing them off your list, because it's a lot more complicated than that. But again, this is a regional economic asset that we have to preserve.
Mr. Bibb will give you a chance to respond.
Yeah, again, another distortion. I didn't say I'm going to close Burke immediately. What I said was, now is the time to have an honest conversation about how we can work around these issues. And again, we have a county airport that we have with Cuyahoga County. We have Akron Airport, that's another regional airport. And we have an airport in Lorain. So these are all things we can work around. But for far too long, we've talked about Burke and had no real action. We should have an honest conversation about the future of that asset.
Mr. Kelley, you've got some time.
Thank you. Well, we've had honest conversations. We've had more than conversations. I don't know if you knew this, but we gave an option to a developer to look at, to see if there is any feasible way that it could be developed. We have soil samples, we have borings. It's not something that it hasn't been discussed. It's that it's been discussed, but a lot of people don't like the answer. The answer is that it's challenging. We need to really take a look at this asset. But again, we can have a more regional approach to our air service and where the reliever airports are. But we have to make sure that we understand that Hopkins is the center of this aviation economy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelley.